Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. Welcome to Tousi TV. This is your global news channel. I'm Tousi, and Keir Starmer is having a bit of a headache today. Absolute chaos inside the British government as the Epstein files have now hit and rocked the British Labour Party, and also in other parts of the political chaos that we are dealing with, the circus that is British politics. Norris has now been arrested by the police over sexual allegations as well. And there is also another chaos as the Labour MPs are now rebelling against the Prime Minister, their own MPs, over the illegal immigration issue. Crisis, basically. Now, this is completely chaotic. We're going to give you guys the latest updates, some information, some of the details from the Epstein files that relate to Peter Mandelson, and or the Dark Lord of the Labour Party, as he is called. We're going to get your reaction live as usual. This infamous photo, every single time I see this, it's important to show it, but it's a little bit disturbing. Should have given a heads up beforehand. More information about Mandelson has now been released from the Epstein files. Lord Mandelson has now, basically yesterday, when all this came out last night, there was a lot of pressure on Keir Starmer to sack Peter Mandelson, who, in case you don't know, Peter Mandelson was the kingmaker. He is the man behind Tony Blair. The existence of Tony Blair. He's basically Blair's daddy. He created the whole project, New Labour, and he was behind the scenes running the Labour government for about 13 years. But he's coming down very, very badly right now. About a year ago, Keir Starmer appointed him as the UK ambassador to the United States. That was a whole different scandal on its own anyway, because already we had information coming out about his connections to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, last night, pressure on Downing Street to remove him as a Labour member. They didn't do it. Absolutely chaotic political choice by Keir Starmer. But Lord Mandelson himself, don't forget he's a Lord, he's a member of the House of Lords, decided late last night to resign from the Labour Party himself. And I quote, to not cause further embarrassment to the party. Yeah, that's the problem. It's just a little bit embarrassing right now, apparently. Jeffrey Epstein apparently sent Peter Mandelson $75,000 when he was still alive. And Keir Starmer made Peter Mandelson US ambassador. He's still a member of the House of Lords, and he's still a member of Keir Starmer's inner circle. This problem is no longer just about Jeffrey Epstein or Peter Mandelson or the people who went to the island. It's actually being connected to those who are accessories. And that includes the whole of the Labour Party and right now the leadership of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer. Now, some of the stuff that's come out, really weird. Firstly, Jeffrey Epstein and Peter Mandelson discussing Prince, he's not Prince anymore, is he? It's Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's daughter, Beatrice, in 2009. There was an email saying, does that make it incest? How exciting. And then reply was, remember, I am already her Lord President. Slightly disturbing, but that's how they speak, apparently. Jeffrey Epstein also told Peter Mandelson that he had monstrous fun with Bill Gates in Seattle during all the parties with child sex trafficking, weird, evil stuff that was happening. From Jeffrey to Peter Mandelson, saying basically no in reply, saying spent the day with Gates in Seattle having monstrous fun. There was a lot of other important issues that happened, and this is actually quite important when it comes to the scandal hitting the British government and the British state in general. So, Jeffrey Epstein's emails show that Peter Mandelson secretly advised JP Morgan's CEO on how to fight the Labour government's 2009 bankers' bonuses tax. Do you remember after the financial crash, we had the bankers' bonuses, taxing everybody. And Peter Mandelson was basically, even though he was part of the Labour establishment, behind the scenes he was helping his friends, including Jeffrey. And Peter Mandelson was, at the time, business secretary. He was literally in government. And then a year later, when Labour lost control of the government and the Tories won, he then tried to get a job at JP Morgan. Now, this gets really weird. Because again, this is not really just about all the sexual allegations and everything else, the disgusting things that happened around Jeffrey Epstein. This is also about the influence inside the deep state in many countries and many governments, but we are talking about the British governments right now. So December 2009, on the 9th of December, Alistair Darling, who was Chancellor, the Labour Chancellor, announced a 50% tax on bankers' bonuses. So it started from here. Then, on the 15th of December, only a few days later, shortly after that, Jeffrey Epstein asked Peter Mandelson if the tax could be amended so it applied only to cash bonuses. Basically, they're having direct access to the government, telling them what to do. And Peter Mandelson said that he was trying hard to do the exact same thing, to amend it. Saying trying too hard to amend, as I explained to Jez last night, Treasury digging in, but I am on the case. Now, then we had this. It's astonishing, this level of access. Treasury. Great Britain needs help, GB in May and not another enemy, and then says amend it, deliver the message personally. I'm going to sleep, blah, blah, blah. And then there was a mention of a car crash, but we don't know exactly what that was the reference to. JP Morgan and the Treasury, right? Everything goes back to what Peter Mandelson did, because on the 17th of December 2009, Epstein asked Mandelson if Jamie Dimon should call the Chancellor one more time to put pressure. Mandelson responded, yes, he should mildly threaten Alistair Darling. Said, should Jamie call Alistair Darling one more time? They said that JP Morgan alone was over the 500 million said to be needed. And it says, yes. Peter Mandelson said yes and mildly threatened. Peter Mandelson was already part of the Labour government. He was knifing his own government. He was knifing his own Chancellor to help Epstein. That is not normal behavior. Now, you could do favors for your friends. You know, obviously, there's a level of corruption that's apparently acceptable when it comes to politics. But you don't really do that. That's a whole different level of absolute misjudgment or evil behavior. Then Epstein also claimed that Peter Mandelson governed Britain for 13 years, which is not really that much of a surprise because we've been talking about that for like 30 years now. Saying, I like it, I don't like it, that this book is part candid autobiography, part history, and describes what motivated me and made me tick as I played. The third man to two prime ministers, Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. It is about why things happened, not just what happened, the rise, fall, and future of a political phenomenon. That governed Britain for 13 years. And what happened to me and my life during this roller coaster ride. The level of arrogance is absolutely brilliant. It's so important. But then, their friendship with Andrew is also problematic anyway, because there's now pressure piling on Andrew to testify before the US Congress about Epstein, but they're saying that his mental health is not in a good way. He's having mental health issues, guys. Thoughts and prayers with Andrew Windsor. Now, he's not really legally obliged to go, but the House Oversight Committee obviously can't really subpoena him to appear. He's in the UK, but Starmer can urge him to go. Peter Mandelson has released a statement after he resigned. The whole thing gets really weird now. So he says, Peter Mandelson, I have been further linked this weekend to the understandable furor surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, and I feel regretful and sorry about this. You're sorry that you got connected. Okay. Allegations which I believe to be false, that he made financial payments to me 20 years ago, and of which I have no record or recollection, need investigating by me. He's going to investigate himself. Did I receive money? Oh, let me investigate this, guys. While doing this, I do not wish to cause further embarrassment to the Labour Party, and I am therefore stepping down from the membership of the party. I want to take this opportunity to repeat my apology to the women and girls whose voices should have been heard long before now. I have dedicated my life to the values and success of the Labour Party, and in taking my decision, I believe I am acting in the best interest of the party. I know you're acting in the best interest of you, Peter Mandelson. Obviously, the opposition are hitting back hard. Tom Tugendhat said enough is enough from the shadow cabinet, saying Peter Mandelson knew that his best pal, Jeffrey Epstein, was a convicted sex offender, but he continued his friendship. Let's quickly go to Tom Tugendhat.
I think it's not just Andrew, as Angela says quite rightly. We've got these renewed allegations of Peter Mandelson. You know, he claims that he was an observer. He gave an interview to you and to others, trying to exonerate himself. You know, Epstein was arrested for child trafficking in 2008, and 3 years later, Peter Mandelson is still talking to him about tax advice, about relationships, about PR, and all these sort of things. Clearly, Peter Mandelson has got some questions to answer too, and if Andrew should appear publicly and answer questions, so should Peter Mandelson.
True, it's right. But are we going to get an actual investigation? Someone says, what? Pakistan has liquid. I don't know what that is. Irrelevant comment. Maya, can you explain why Trump would even discuss nuclear weapons when this revolution is about the regime change? I don't get it. Please watch our live stream last night. We explained all that in the previous live stream about the negotiations between the US and the Islamic Republic. Now, apart from Tom Tugendhat, we also had Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the opposition, hitting hard, saying the only reason Peter Mandelson is no longer our ambassador in Washington is because the Conservative Party shamed the government into acting. A little bit, yeah. Keir Starmer was forced to fire him. But the government have refused to set out how exactly he came to be appointed in the first place. That is a very good question. If Keir Starmer had a backbone, he would suspend Mandelson's membership of the Labour Party and launch an immediate investigation into how Mandelson and his husband were being sent money by the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. At the time, Mandelson was Labour's business secretary and acting as Deputy Prime Minister. This is an international scandal. The cover-up needs to end. The Prime Minister must act. So a few minutes after this, Peter Mandelson resigned as Labour. And then Kemi said, enough is enough. We need a full Cabinet Office investigation into how Mandelson and his husband took money from obviously Epstein while he was a Labour minister, and why Mandelson was appointed ambassador in the first place. Keir Starmer told me that he had full confidence in Peter Mandelson before having to sack him as ambassador. The Prime Minister has consistently looked the other way when it comes to Mandelson's past, even avoiding proper vetting. Just yesterday, he let Mandelson resign his own Labour membership rather than acting. If Starmer lacks the backbone to order this investigation, then it will be all the more clear that he bears full responsibility for bringing Mandelson back into British public life, despite knowing about the relationship with Epstein. The other issue with this is that I'm afraid a proper investigation is going to open the gates to chaos, and it should. A lot of other names will be exposed, a lot of other compromised figures, and this could completely damage the whole integrity and trust when it comes to public office, both in the UK, in the US, and other places in general. So the whole of the structure of the Western world could come crashing down if everything comes out. This is why a lot of people have been reluctant, obviously. But the truth is important as well, especially when it comes to corruption. Forget about the sexual allegations, all the obvious things that we already have been talking about for years now. But the level of corruption and inside access and influence already undermines our world order. Keir Starmer has now called over the last hour for Peter Mandelson to be stripped of his peerage, so he no longer would be a member of the House of Lords. But that is not the biggest problem here. Obviously, he shouldn't be the member of the House of Lords anymore anyway. He's now also ordered an urgent review of Mandelson's contact with Jeffrey Epstein during his time as a government minister, after the documents that came out from 2009. So this is after Kemi Badenoch started to put pressure as the leader of the opposition. So this whole thing is just the beginning of something that could bring down Keir Starmer. What could bring down Keir Starmer as Prime Minister is not just about Peter Mandelson, it's also about everything else around him, which we're going to cover in this live report, because we had also Dan Norris being arrested. We also have his own members right now rebelling against him to bring him down over illegal immigration. Now, that is a whole different thing. But on the issue of the Member of Parliament, Dan Norris, Labour Party's Dan Norris, who has now been suspended, obviously, he's now been arrested again on suspicion of sexual assault, rape, upskirting, basically all categories of being creepy. This is like, he was just trying to do a full house. And the Labour Party didn't act in time. Again, they didn't act when they were supposed to be sorting things out. They don't care. That's the whole problem with the establishment in general. Until things get really bad, then they pretend that they never backed this person, they never actually trusted this person should have never been in the party, whatever. The statement from the police after the arrest. An investigation into allegations of non-recent sexual offences, which resulted in the arrest of a man in his 60s, is continuing. The man was initially arrested in April 2025 on suspicion of sexual offences against a girl under the Sexual Offences Act of 1956, and also rape under the Sexual Offences Act 2003, child abduction and misconduct in a public office. Following our inquiries, the man has been further arrested on suspicion of rape against a second woman and assault against a third woman, as well as voyeurism and upskirting against a number of women. We are no longer actively investigating any sexual offences against children, but the original allegations in the investigation is continuing. That is a whole list of fresh allegations on top of everything else that we already had. And there are different categories. It's weird. Keir Starmer is in major crisis right now, because right now, at this point, his own MPs are coming for him. We have had a number of rebellions against Keir Starmer over the last couple of years. Labour MPs have tried to bring him down a few times to do a vote of no confidence, but then every time they do their numbers, they realise, oh, we don't have the actual numbers, we can't do this. But every time you have a rebellion, the next rebellion, more Labour MPs join. So eventually you're going to have enough MPs to do a vote of no confidence, or at least push him out. So they're now on the brink of revolt again, the Labour MPs, backbench MPs, over the plans to put illegal immigrants in new social housing, council houses. So for the past few years, we had a bit of a crisis in the UK with illegal immigrants, right? They put them in hotels, they put them on military bases or whatever, obviously abandoned military bases. Now we are at the point where we already knew that if you're an illegal immigrant, you get prioritized over local British citizens for social housing. But when it comes to urgent emergency social housing for new council houses that are being built by the government, illegal immigrants will be prioritized that instantly. So if you're waiting on a waiting list for housing, if you're homeless and you're British, nothing for you. So around 200 local authorities, local governments have now registered their interest in this pilot scheme that would basically fund building new houses for illegal immigrants, not for British people, for illegal immigrants. That includes Brighton-on-Hove, Hackney, which is in North London, Peterborough in Lincolnshire, and Thanet, which is in Essex. Now, if you are a local resident in one of these areas, and there are many places as well, there are 200 local governments around the country that are doing this, it's time to protest. It's time to write to your MPs, to your local councillors, to block the developments, because enough is enough. Keir Starmer's own MPs have now criticised the scheme for prioritising the foreigners and their housing needs over British citizens. Last year alone, 1.3 million families were on a social housing waiting list. That's up 3% since 2004, when the Tories were in charge. So that's already increased. The Labour government was supposed to fix things, they've just made things worse. But now, that's just going to increase even further. This is a mess, absolute mess of a situation that is not being dealt with. Starmer is in the Epstein file, says Russell. And John says, Iranian people have and need supporters across the political spectrum, including the middle and even liberals. Freedom isn't just a far-right cause. Nothing to do with Epstein. Mandelson was a MP of my hometown. Melanie, did you vote for him? Did you do it? Not? I'm kidding. Yeah, but the thing is, Mandelson's influence and his dirty work was visible for years across the country, because he was basically running the government unofficially, so everybody is affected. Could Mandy's connection to Epstein be due to Mandy's father being Jewish? No, because we also had Muslims, including the former president of the Islamic Republic, Ahmadinejad, being connected to Jeffrey Epstein. We had Muslims, we had obviously the atheists, we had everybody being connected. The state of Qatar, Muslim Brotherhood, they were connected to Jeffrey Epstein, and many others as well. Mr. Mandelson, underpants, business secretary. That photo. I love Trump. Do we really believe this latest FBI document dump on Epstein was just a coincidence a day or two after the UK refused to designate the IRGC as terrorists? Yeah, not necessarily coincidence in that sense, but coincidence when it comes to what you said, yeah. Because it's nothing to do with the British government's refusal to designate the IRGC. That's not really a priority for the Americans right now, to push the British government to designate the IRGC as a terrorist organization. It doesn't really do much anyway. It just shows the moral bankruptcy of the British state, because it's not really a British government problem or Keir Starmer's problem. Keir Starmer wants the British state, Foreign Office and the Palace, and that is a bigger problem. Now, someone says perhaps it's time to build a new supermax prison for corrupt politicians. You're going to need to have a whole island of prisons. Maybe there is an island we could use, because I think right now that island is no longer being used by a certain Jeffrey. So perhaps we could use that island for both criminals and also illegal immigrants coming into the West. Send everybody there. Lock the doors. It's a good policy, right? It's not the real Marie Antoinette. Nothing will happen to Mandelson because he knows too much, or maybe he falls out of the window. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that when it comes to people at the top getting caught out, it's different to people like, people who are dead, right? When these allegations come out. But when it comes to people at the top, I can imagine there will be conversations between people like Mandelson and the people in charge. And it's not really just about people in charge of Britain. We're talking about the whole world. And those who know what Peter Mandelson knows, they will have to have a conversation to see if he will spill the beans. Because they don't want more things to come out. Because, as I said, it will undermine the whole world order. Everybody's involved. It's not a good look, right? So on the one hand, normal people say, we need the truth. On the other hand, there are people saying, literally, the whole planet will just come crashing down. But you can't use that as an excuse to say, well, let's just do a cover-up anyway, because then you're just going to encourage bad behavior going forward. People are just going to do more bad things and just cover it up. But at the same time, there could be a conversation with people like Mandelson, a bit of a threat saying, don't mention any other thing, because if you bring other people out, mention them, then you might fall out the window, as this person said. But you can't control that. So most of the time, what we end up seeing, same thing with Andrew Windsor, is you get cancelled on a societal level. Peter Mandelson is now cancelled, but the legal case will just get dragged on, and nothing will actually really happen. Maybe a bit of a slap on the wrist, or a bit of a conviction for a slightly minor offence to make it seem like you've done something, right? But in reality, you're not actually going after the big stuff, because you would say, oh, we couldn't really find enough evidence. We found evidence for minor offences, but not really full comprehensive evidence of certain allegations, by the way, which is on a different level, includes murder. Not necessarily when it comes to Mandelson, but we're talking about the overall Epstein saga. So it's no longer just about underage girls or sex trafficking or things that are already disgusting anyway. But it could get very, very darker than what it is now. You see, every country was invented at some point, including Pakistan. Iranians are very genetically related. Don't know what this guy is talking about. China blackmailing Starmer, recent flip on the IRGC. There was a lot of pressure, but not necessarily from the foreign governments, but from the British Deep State Foreign Office and the Palace, which is not really a surprise. But the Labour politicians should have known behind the scenes. They should have at least had a conversation with the Foreign Office first, before getting told what not to do. So, and there are already prisons. There are prisons already built for these people. We're just going to need more prisons and bigger prisons, because there's going to be a lot of people that need to go to prison. Obviously, they won't, but they deserve to go to prison. But that was also one of the main reasons the whole theory of Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, is because on a more academic level and theoretical level, to have a conversation about the theory that he was killed, it makes absolute sense, because once he goes, a few years ago, he's now dead, then you can't really use him as the main contact for the allegations. So, oh no, Jeffrey Epstein just killed himself suddenly. And then going forward, after a few years, documents could come out. Yes, names will be mentioned. They get embarrassed. They might get cancelled. They will have to go live in private lives in hiding or whatever, like Andrew Windsor. But at least it won't bring down the credibility of the world order. So essentially, by throwing Jeffrey Epstein under the bus, you could save many others in the future, which is now. So you could release all these files, but what could actually happen? What will actually be done about it? That is the key question. Anyway, there is a lot to cover on this over the next few days. If you want to get more out of this channel, become a member of Tousi TV Plus. You can only do that by either scanning the QR code or visit tousi.tv directly. That's only our website, our independent platform, separate to YouTube, obviously. So become a member there. You get access to our all the original series and interviews and documentaries. And we also have our own private Discord server, our chat forum, which is separate to YouTube. Do that now. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tousi, and we are the media.